I think it's that carnivore zen. I don't remember who I heard say that, but I totally get it now. And in the beginning, I thought that sounded kind of silly, but that carnivore zen that like just all of a sudden you just feel this peace. I'm going to try to, I don't want to cry because it has been such an emotional roller coaster for me coming from what I came from 35 years probably of disordered eating and eating disorders. So the idea that I'm free is still a little bit hard to believe, but it's 100% true. I don't worry about it ever, but I think it's that carnivore zen. And I think it's the beef. Like there is such a healing power in beef that people just don't know yet. Beef is like a miracle food. It's the ultimate elimination diet. It's the ultimate anti-inflammation diet.
Serena, you can hear me good. Wonderful. Thank you. Well, welcome, first of all. And so for you guys who know, we have Serena is going to share with us, I guess, a success story that she's had with, I guess, nutrition and health. So Serena, welcome. Where are you located at today?
I am in Southwest Virginia in my basement.
Okay, in your basement, very specific. Well, good for you. I am on my second story of my house in Washington State, so in Western Washington. So anyway, well, tell us. Well, go ahead, just tell us a little about yourself and how you got going into things and what's going on with your life these days.
Okay. Well, you were one of the influences on me when I first got started with the carnivore diet. And what actually led me to the carnivore diet, there's a gnat here. What actually led me to the carnivore diet was I have a weird post-COVID issue where things taste and smell rotten. For some people, it leaves a distorted sense of taste and smell called parosmia. And so when that started for me, I had COVID in March of 2020. This started March of 2021, just out of the blue. Like you wake up one day and coffee smells like a rotten skunk carcass. I mean, there were so many things. So for about 2 months, I dealt with that, trying all different things. I tried juice fasts. I did a 5-day water fast, which did fix it. But within 48 hours of going back to eating, it came back again. But I tried many, many different things. I was eating at the time, basically, when I wasn't trying something different, I was eating your basic, low fat, standard American diet, lots of artificially sweetened things that came out of packages, things that were not good for me, but they kept my points or my calories, low enough that I felt like I could lose a few pounds. It was that constant struggle for me. I was always on a diet. And, but at this point, I was just trying to heal what was going on for me. And the weekend of my birthday in May of last year, I ate 20 cupcakes in 36 hours, which was like the end of my rope. Like everybody has that rock bottom place where they make changes, whether it be, from drugs or alcohol. For me, my drug of choice was food. It was sugar. It was carbohydrates. And I was sad because most of the things that I tried to eat tasted and smelled rotten. We would go out to eat as a family and I would order and then not be able to eat my food when it came. It was just the most bizarre thing. And I kept trying new things, thinking it's going to be different this time. Oh, this time I'll be able to eat the salad. Oh, this time I'll be able to eat, whatever I was trying to eat. But sugar was the thing for me. It was the thing that kept me going. It was the only thing I could eat that tasted and smelled right. So that was where I was getting my joy. And so that weekend I ate 20 cupcakes and I woke up on Monday morning and said, that's it. No more carbs for me, no more sugar. And I'm pretty resolved. Like when I decide on something, when I become resolved to something, I'm pretty good about it. And so I decided that's it. I'm not going to do this anymore. And I started doing research. Like if I can't eat fruits and vegetables because they taste and smell rotten and I'm not going to eat sugar anymore, what does that leave me? Okay, I can eat like these 3 meats. That was all I could eat. And so I started doing research, like, what does this mean? And I realized this is a carnivore. And I found you and Kelly Hogan and Laura Spath and Michaela Peterson and just absorbed myself into this world and trying to learn all of these things. And so that was about 16 months ago. And it made a huge difference. I do think it helped my parosmia. In the beginning, I know we'll never know because we don't know how fast that was going to heal. It's still not healed by any means. There are still many, many things like coffee, garlic, onion, peppermint, many things that I can't even really be in the same room as without feeling sick. I still can't eat roasts either. Any kind of roast, I can't. Like somebody takes the lid off the pot and I have to leave the room. But I can eat chicken now and I can eat hamburgers and steak. I mean, I can eat almost a full carnivore diet and feel really good and healthy and happy. And I've lost 20 pounds. I gained 18 in the beginning by, I believe, not eating enough and fasting too much. My body was from this history of chronic undereating and dieting, my body was just like in a crisis mode when I started eating the carnivore diet. And my body just didn't really know what to do, I think, in the beginning. And because I was only eating about 800 calories a day, fasting every other day, because people say fasting is good, but it ended up kind of backfiring on me. And I didn't do very well in the beginning because I just, I felt good and I knew what I was doing was right. But because I wasn't eating enough, I didn't have that like endless energy that people talk about. You are full of energy. So many people are full of energy, but I didn't really feel like that in the beginning because I wasn't eating enough. But I figured that out and I started losing weight after I increased, the amount of foods that I was eating. And basically I feel great now. The thing that changed the most for me though is, and I didn't even consider that this was going to happen when I first started the carnivore diet because I was so focused on fixing that parosmia. But I was bulimic for 20 years. I had disordered eating for 10 years after that and still binged. And then I would not eat for the next, 2 or 3 days to punish myself for the bag of chocolate popcorn I ate, on the way home from Sam's. The 20 cupcakes for me was literally just the icing on the cake. That was just your typical thing. Your typical day for me really was not day, but several times a week. I would eat like that and then punish myself. It was just a rocky road. My mom's an alcoholic. My dad's a drug addict. And so it manifested itself in me with carbs and sugar and, having disordered eating and eating disorders. And what I realized about 6 months in was that I was better. And for me, that is, the idea that I don't binge and I don't think about binging and I don't really worry about losing weight and that I'm not stressed about my food that's the first time for me in my adult life that I didn't feel that way. I bought my first diet pills when I was 12. And so this is literally the first time in my life, it's been about a year of being free from the shackles and chains of, disordered eating and eating disorders and just being so preoccupied by your food. And looking back on it, it just seems so ridiculous that I allowed that to happen, that I allowed it to control me my whole adult life. So for the first time in probably 35 years, I'm at peace. I'll be 50 next year and I feel like I'm 30.
Well, congratulations on finding that. I'm just wondering, had you not, contracted COVID and had, the issues with sense of smell, you may never even try that. You may still be back eating the 20 cupcakes every once a week or something like that. So it's kind of the silver lining in the cloud, I suppose. How do you, because there's a lot of people that, believe me, there's a lot of people that have this binge eating, disordered eating. They do that. They have guilt about it. They starve themselves. They fast themselves. They overexercise to make up for the box of donuts they ate or whatever. That happens all the time. What, and you said, you've been on a diet since you were 12, sort of taking diet pills. What's different this time? What's going on physiologically or psychologically that allows you to not sort of fall prey to that continued disordered behavior? What do you think's going on?
Honestly, I think it's that carnivore zen. I don't remember who I heard say that, but I totally get it now. And in the beginning, I thought that sounded kind of silly, but that carnivore zen that just all of a sudden you just feel this peace. I'm going to I don't want to cry because it has been such an emotional roller coaster for me coming from what I came from 35 years probably of disordered eating and eating disorders. So the idea that I'm free is still a little bit hard to believe, but it's 100% true. I don't worry about it ever. I still have a little bit of a thing with chicken wings. I think because I kept myself from eating them for so many years because they were bad for me, So once every 2 weeks, I go buy a bunch of chicken wings and make them and eat them until I just don't want them anymore. And then I go right back to beef. But I think it's that carnivore zen. And I think it's the beef. There is such a healing power in beef that people just don't know yet. And I know but so many people don't know yet. And we have to get that out to the mainstream media and to the mainstream people. People have to understand that beef is like a miracle food. It's the ultimate elimination diet. It's the ultimate anti-inflammation diet. We have to teach people this. People have to understand that it's the inflammation that I think that probably it was the inflammation in my brain that kept me wanting those carbohydrates. Obviously it was the addiction too. Those things are so addictive, but eliminating them completely and then eliminating everything that tasted sweet. Because a lot of people don't do that. They keep like the keto treats in and stuff like that, and they'll still use the artificial sugars. In the beginning, I was still having my coffee, even though it smelled and tasted horrible to me, because that was another addiction that I hadn't let go of yet. I was using some things in my coffee, but once I gave up the coffee with the artificial sweeteners in it, I didn't want any of those things anymore. And I didn't really look at the coffee as an addiction, but man, it was. I gave it up back in March, and one of the best decisions I ever made. I don't think there's anything wrong with a cup of coffee if people want it, but for me, it definitely helped me be completely free from everything. But ultimately, I think letting go of all of those hangups is what got me to where I am right now, 16 months in, and being able to let go of the obsession with my weight, the obsession with the amount of calories I was eating. I still do count just every now and then, because I do have a habit of under eating, just out of habit from 30 years of dieting. Since I was an adult, I've been dieting. So I do still have a habit of that. So I do have to kind of keep check on it, and be sure that I'm not under eating. But ultimately, it was the healing in my brain, I think, that fixed it for me.
Hey folks, it's Dr. ShawnBaker here. If you guys are enjoying these success stories, well, you can become your own success story. You can do that by heading over to Carnivore.diet. You can sign up for a free 30-day trial and get started today. We're looking forward to supporting you. Our community is wonderful, and we'd love to see your success. Yeah, you mentioned a lot about freedom from this, freedom from that, freedom from the burden of this sort of disordered eating pattern and the problems that cause that. A lot of people say, well, you're on a restrictive diet, and you don't. A lot of people say, well, if you just restrict calories and eat in a deficit, and eat enough protein, you shouldn't need to cut out carbohydrates. Does that have you tried that before? Did that not work for you?
I've literally, you name the diet. If you rattled off a bunch of diets, I've done them. I've been vegan. I've been vegetarian. I've done 14-day juice fasts. I've done water fasts. I mean, I have literally done every diet you can think of. And I did restricted calories. When I switched to carnivore, aside from the 20 cupcakes I ate, I was basically following like a Weight Watchers plan. And that had worked for me in the past. But once again, for years, every time I tried it, I would undereat in the beginning and then realize it and raise up my calories or whatever. And then I would start losing weight. But up here, it wasn't fixed up here. That was still just part of my mentality, that diet mentality. It was just this constant, what's going to be the next diet? But when I switched to carnivore, I had been eating like 75% of my plate was vegetables. I would just eat the ones that didn't taste and smell rotten. I didn't eat a lot of fruit because I was trying to restrict sugar, but I was eating only lean meats. Like I probably hadn't had beef in a year or close to a year, maybe a few times in a year, because I felt like it had too much fat. It had too many calories. It had too many points for me. So yes, I have tried restriction. I restricted for 30 years and it got me nowhere. It got me still mentally unstable as far as food goes. And I know a lot of people think that the carnivore diet is just another extension of an eating disorder, disordered eating, just another way to restrict myself. But it is not. It is the most relaxed I have ever been in my entire life about food. And I guess it's because I come from a history of addiction that for me, maybe not everybody goes 35 years with a problem like this. But I certainly did. And the idea that I can be free from it after that long means many, many other people can be free from it. And I think we don't talk about the undereating enough and what damage that does to somebody who's even coming from a sad diet. If you come to carnivore and you undereat, you are not going to have the same effects as somebody who eats that 2 or 3 pounds of meat with fat every day to get the healing in their body. We don't talk about that enough. And we don't talk about the eating disorders enough, and how somebody coming from an eating disordered background can be free with this. Because for years, I thought the only thing that I was in control of is what I put in my mouth. I'm not in control of what I breathe. I'm not in control really of, where I go or how I live, because, we all have to live our lives. But the one thing I'm in control of is what I put in my mouth. But yet I failed at that almost every single day. I failed at that. And so, but I thought that I was in control of that, but really it was controlling me. It was controlling everything I did. I thought about food all day long. And I don't think about it at all anymore. So if that's not freedom, I was restricted when I was 20 pounds heavier and tying my shoes was uncomfortable. I was restricted when I couldn't go out, and sprint like I did yesterday morning, or come down to my basement and do weights like I did this morning. I was restricted when I didn't feel like doing those things because I was overweight and felt like it didn't matter. And I was tired because of the foods I was eating, even though I was eating mostly vegetables, which are supposed to be the best things for us. I didn't have the energy, that I have now. So if this isn't freedom, then I don't know what is.
Yeah, it's interesting, because a lot of people would think, hey, set 3/4 of your plate vegetables and some lean meat would be a perfect diet. I see a lot of people out there recommending that as the go-to, and it's just not working for you for various reasons. And yes, I mean, I've talked to, anybody who's read my book, they know that I talk about eating enough in the beginning, particularly eat enough so that you don't want cupcakes. That is a big problem of under eating. There was this question in here. I'll try to, get to some of the questions people had. Somebody's asking, are you eating seafood? Is it mostly beef? Just what's your diet consist of, I guess, would be a general question.
Mostly beef, with the exception of my wings, which I don't mess with my chicken wings because I like to have those. And I do like seafood, but I'm still having some aversions because of my smell to salmon and tilapia, like the cod, like the seafoods that we buy for home so often. I'm still having a little bit of an aversion to those because of the smell. But I do buy some crab meat sometimes. I love to have that with, I'll use some crab meat and put like a whole stick of melted butter on top of it. I love crab meat. And I did buy some canned oysters a couple of weeks ago, but I haven't tried them yet. But typically I eat mostly beef. I order beef bacon from a local butcher and get some extra ribeye fat from him. And then, so mostly beef for me. I like to kind of mix it up. Like I'll eat ground beef for one meal and then, just kind of brown. And then I'll eat a hamburger for another meal. And then I'll have a steak, or we'll have beef bacon for dinner. And my family's really good about it. Like they're not all carnivores. My husband mostly is. But I can make 2 pans of beef bacon and everybody will just walk through the kitchen and eat that for dinner. And then, the kids will have some blueberries with it or something. But they're pretty good about just kind of eating what I make. I try to do a lot of batch cooking so we can have it for the week. And that seems to help us a lot, but I do mostly beef.
Yeah, the beef bacon is quite a good find, or a good thing. And you mentioned your husband mostly carnivore. How has that been received? When you first decided to do this, was everybody going, "What the heck are you doing?" Or how did that work out?
Yeah, well, it took a while for everybody to realize that I was literally only eating the meat, because I was still making meals for the family mostly. And so it took a little while for them to kind of realize, wait a minute, mom is only eating this part. And they do still even think that it's a little bit nuts, but I try to just be a good example and always explain why I'm doing it. And when I read a really good book, right now I'm right in the middle of The Big Fat Surprise. Mm-hmm. And so I'm trying to get, some people in my family. We have 2 older kids that are adults that still live at home, and I'm trying to talk them into reading this book because I felt like it was just a really good example of how we were all duped and cheated, back in the 1970s and 80s to eat these low fat diets. And so I just try to be a good example. And everybody around me knows that I wear t-shirts, and all of the people at our kids' volleyball and basketball, they all know, and, they'll make little remarks here and there, but I think everybody can see it, and I think that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. I mean, as far as, you said, well, I guess, you said I said soon to be 50 or about to be 50. Is it fair to say you feel better now than you have throughout most of your life? Is that a fair statement?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, I can't believe but I think a lot of it's internal. So not everybody is going to see that, mm-hmm. but I do feel like I live it too. But yeah, I mean, I feel completely different than I did 10, 15 years ago. If you had told me 10 or 15 years ago that I would be doing this and that I'd be talking to somebody like you, or that I would be eating the way that I'm eating, I would have thought they were nuts. I would have thought it was the most ridiculous thing. But with the research the things that we know now, I think anybody who doesn't give it a chance, read some books, look some people up, watch some of your videos, watch people's videos and read things. Anybody who doesn't educate themselves, it's their own fault if they're sick and miserable at this point, because there is enough information out there, that everybody should be able to learn this and make their own decisions. But I can't imagine somebody knowing the things that we know, and way more than I do. I can't imagine somebody knowing the things I know or the things and not giving it a chance. You're certainly not going to get sicker in 30 or 60 days. You're not going to get sicker. So, you might as well try it. If I feel better, maybe you'll feel better too.
Let me ask you, this is a hypothetical question, but I think it's a good one, because let's say, you're on this diet. It's lots of meat. It's lots of saturated fat. Some people would suggest that that's going to lead to an increased risk of heart disease or other diseases down the road. And that may or may not be true. I tend to think that it's probably not. But even if it was true, and somebody said, hey, you've increased your risk for cardiovascular disease by 20% by doing this diet, would you be willing to go back to another diet, or, like you said, the vegetable and meat diet because of that risk? Does it make a difference to you?
I really don't. I really don't think that it would. I think that I don't need science and doctors to tell me the answers when I see so many people and talk to so many people and have made so many friends in this space that are doing so well. Like if I have 15 or 20 or 30 or 200 friends on Instagram or Facebook, or people that I have met, you, Kelly Hogan, Dr. Chafee. I mean, when you think about the people, when I have that many people that I can look at and say, wow, this is amazing. And then I've got, doctors showing me, scientific reports from 40 years ago that have no basis and no truth, that was just basically based on a hypothesis that we all just, dove into head first, and it just made us sicker. Like if that's the alternative, if that's the medicine and the scientific research that we have to go by, I would much rather go by the real cases that I'm seeing and dealing with, and and talking to people on a daily basis. I think that's enough for me. And I have said, to several people over the last 6 or 8 months that I am never going back. I am never going back to. I was already gluten-free for about 10 years, so I would need a hamburger with a bun anyway. But I am never going back to eating French fries, and a soda with my burger because it's part of the meal and because it's cheaper that way. You know what I mean? Like I'm never going back to ordering a salad in a restaurant with a piece of grilled chicken breast on it, because that's not what I want. And I don't believe that it's good for me. And the energy that I have, like, I don't want to risk it. I don't want to go back to that and risk that I'll eat 20 cupcakes in a weekend. For me, it's partially that mental aspect of it. I have to do what's best for me. If somebody came with actual definitive scientific research that says, and it was tried and true and had been disputed multiple times with no actual negative against it, like this is a real thing, I guess I would have to think about it then. But I don't think that's coming. I don't think it's coming ever. And I certainly don't think it's coming anytime soon that somebody can actually come forward and say, hey, what you're doing isn't healthy. And here is actual scientific evidence. Here is somebody that was a carnivore for 15 years. And this is their blood work before. And this is what, their CAC score was before. And this is what it is now. Like, I mean, you'd have to show me a lot of cases like that to get me to even rethink it just for a second.
Yeah. I mean, so, and it's going to be difficult to one of the things I say is, unless you're studying people that are actually on a carnivore diet, it's really hard to sort of extrapolate diet from standard American diet or any other diet, because there's so many different variables going on. But I guess the real question is, even if you knew 100% that you increased your risk for heart disease by X percentage, would it still be worth it to feel like you do versus going back to the vegetables and lean meat diet?
Ooh, that's a really tough one. I honestly don't know the answer to that one. I mean, I have to be honest and tell you that I don't really know the answer, because I can't imagine feeling better than I do. And the way I feel is super important to me. Mm-hmm. So the idea that to find out that what I'm doing is actually unhealthy, I don't know. I mean, I have to be honest and just say, I don't have an answer for that, because I don't think it's going to happen. Yeah. So,
Well, I mean, it's a fair enough answer, and we don't know. I mean, honestly, we don't really know. I don't think, and I don't think we'll ever really know. But I mean, it doesn't seem to make sense that you feel so much better that all of a sudden you're now dramatically decreasing your healthfulness and setting yourself for disease. Doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Would you go back if somebody came out with that?
Would I go? No, because I like the quality of life. I mean, I'm more concerned with the quality of my years than the quantity of my years, and so. And again, I've already demonstrated over and over again to myself personally that what I'm doing has not been detrimental to my health in many, many different ways. And so it's something that, I think it makes sense for all of us to continue to verify, trust but verify, as I think George Bush said, or somebody like that. Yeah. Maybe it was Reagan, I can't remember. But anyway, so as far as, you'd mentioned counting calories and not eating 800 calories a day anymore, which, I would never recommend anybody do that certainly not for a prolonged period of time or even at all. So you mentioned 2 to 3 pounds of meat with fat on. Is that How much are you eating a day? What's it? And do you mind sharing your size and stuff like that? Just people get a relative idea what they would eat.
Yeah. So I'm 5'3", and I gained 18 pounds in the first 8 months by not eating enough and fasting too much. That's my definitive answer on why I gained it, because I felt like, well, if fasting once a week is good, then fasting 3 days a week must be better, because that's my all or nothing mentality. That's my eating disorder mentality. And then I thought I was eating enough on the 4 days a week that I was eating. I would eat like what I thought was a large meal. But then when I finally got to 8 months, and I couldn't find the advice that I wanted, like I couldn't find people to say, really count your calories and see how much you're eating. Instead, I just kept hearing, eat when you're hungry until you're full. Don't worry about how much you're eating. Just go by how you feel. That Thanksgiving stuff like Dr. Barry always says. And so that's what I thought I was doing. And after 8 months, I finally just thought, this is ridiculous. If I am not counting just a little bit here and there, how will I know if I need to tweak it? How will I know why what I'm doing isn't working? And so when I started counting calories, I was shocked, because I was eating what I thought was a large meal a day, but because I was fasting every other day and I came from a history and of chronic undereating, I didn't realize how little I was eating because I was full the whole time. I was full all the time. Even on my fasting day, I wasn't very hungry because I was conditioned for that. And so when I finally realized what I was doing, I started eating more and the scale started to go down. And then after that, it just started as long as I make sure I'm eating enough and I don't fast right now. I mean, I'm eating maybe 2 meals a day. Sometimes I eat 1 meal a day, but I make sure it's a very large meal now that I know about how much food that looks like for me. I can eat 1 or 2 meals a day, and then I'm not really hungry for that third meal usually, depending on the timing of my meals. But I'm 5'3". As of this morning, I weigh 138. So I had gained all the way up to, almost, I was 20 pounds heavier than I am right now. So almost 160, which is very much bigger than I am now for somebody who is 5'3". That's 2 clothing sizes. So now I'm 138. I have about 10 pounds to go, and I'm not really sure what the number is because it looks different than it did now. I'm wearing clothes. That's the other thing I think people don't talk about very much is the recomp, the way your body changes. I'm wearing clothes about a size smaller right now than they were last time I weighed this much, about a little over a year and a half ago, which is really interesting because I go to my closet, I pull something out and I think, I haven't worn that in a long time. I wonder if the time is now. And I pull it out and it fits, like my jeans fit, jeans I haven't worn in almost a year and a half. And that's really surprising to me because the last time I weighed this, I couldn't wear those jeans. So, your body is different. So I don't really know that I have a number in mind. I know that there are a few more things that I'd like to fit into. So for the first time in my life, that number on the scale isn't as important. And I don't really believe in throwing away your scale like so many people say. I feel like we have to know, maybe the number becomes not as important to us, but if we're not weighing ourselves and we are never counting our food to know, and I don't think we have to do it all the time or every day, but if we're never doing those things, how can we ever know what to tweak if we don't feel as good as we hear other people saying they feel? And if the scale isn't going in the direction we would like, or if we're not feeling 100%, how do we know what we're doing wrong if we're not measuring anything? You can't have a scientific experiment and have no control or take no measurements on it. So I do think we have to keep track of those things a little bit. But so I don't really know where I'm going, maybe 10 pounds, but I don't know. I'll have to see. I'll have to, when I get into the clothes, I think is what I'll go by. When I like the way I look and I like the way my clothes fit, I think that I'll be able to stop there and be happy with that. Because, that's really where I want to be. The number isn't as important, but I think the number does help because it helps me figure out if what I'm doing is working.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think, like you said, you mentioned his body recomposition, and you can certainly gain weight and actually appear slimmer if you put on more muscle. And we see it all the time. Let me ask you about, I don't know if you mentioned it too much, but you said you mentioned this binge eating disorder. How has your overall mood and energy and mental health been changed by this? Have you noticed any differences there?
Yeah. I mean, this is what it was before, just constant. And this is where I am now, and especially, for the women for that time of month. I don't have any mood swings at all. I don't bloat at all. I don't gain. I mean, there were times I would gain 7 or 8 pounds the couple of days before that time of the month. None of that happens anymore. And at almost 50, I just turned 49, almost 50 still. Normally you've got lots of stuff like that going on in your moods and your weight and your body. And I don't have any of that on Carnivore Diet at all. I mean, I just feel very even keeled. I don't get super emotional about things. My moods aren't up and down. I don't snap like I used to snap a lot. We have 4 kids. We homeschool. I used to lose my patience and, just kind of snap and fuss at everybody. And I don't do that at all anymore. I mean, I feel like my mood, and I think my family would agree. I think my mood is much better than it was before. I'm not moody at all. And I think that's underplayed because that makes a huge difference. Like those sugar swings that we're not having and those sugar cravings that we're not having and the blood sugar spikes and lows, those things that we're not having make a big difference to our mood and how we feel.
Any differences, things like skin, hair, nails, any of those types of things? Some people will comment that they notice improvements in that area. Is that something you've noticed?
Sure. Yeah. My nails are much stronger than they were. And my hair, I had lost a lot of hair because of COVID. Just 3 months ago, my hair was like down to here. It was pretty long. But I had lost so much hair and the texture of my hair just wasn't even really like hair textured anymore since 2020. COVID just messed it up. And I had lost so much of it, had all these little hairs growing back in. And I just went in and I was like, just take it off. I'm wearing it in a ponytail every day anyway. Let's just fix this. It was like thin and brittle. And now I have a good, thick, full head of hair, and it's growing so fast that it's almost too hard to keep it short. Like I'm in that, like, it's like, I can't decide. I need to have it cut like every 2 or 3 weeks in order to keep it short, but I don't want to have it cut that often, but I also don't want it. And I don't want to go through the growing out process. I just cut it. And so my hair is super thick now, and it literally grows. Like if it's such a thing, it grows too fast at this point. And my skin is great. I use tallow lotions, and between what I'm eating and what I'm putting on it, I think my skin is better than it's ever been.
Yeah. And what about like digestive issues? Digestive health, any difference? I don't know if before when you're eating these mixed diets, a lot of people say there's a lot of things like bloating and stuff like that. How's your digestion, your ability to go to the bathroom, things like that? Is that okay?
Yeah. I've going to the bathroom so much in my whole life as I have, like the last year, but going to the bathroom is no trouble at all. It may not be every day, but that's okay because I just don't have as much waste as your normal person who goes to the bathroom multiple times a day like that. And my digestion is perfect. I am never gassy. I'm never bloated. I can eat a meal that I think was way too much food for me and, go up to change my clothes and my stomach is still just completely flat. Like it's really interesting because you eat a lot. You eat until you're like Thanksgiving full in many, many cases. And then you're just like, you don't have to unbuckle your belt like you do on Thanksgiving. And it's just really interesting how eating the species appropriate food for you affects your body so much differently than when we put all that garbage in it instead.
Yeah, fair enough. Do you, like I said, are you planning on reintroducing other foods as time goes by? Is that something you'd like to do, or what are your thoughts with that? Has the the olfactory smell, so you don't get those sensations around meat though. That seems to be okay for you.
Most of it, like I said, I still can't be anywhere near beef roast or any other kind of roast, which is really odd. I don't know if it's the cut. I don't know. But in the beginning, I could only eat my meat fresh. Like I could put a hamburger on the grill and eat it right away, but I couldn't put it in the fridge and reheat it the next day. There's this weird chemical reaction, I guess, that happens when you refrigerate it. And I'm still really, like, I see people taking cold hamburger patties with them when they go out for the day. There is no way I can do that. When I pull something out of the refrigerator, the smell is so repulsive. And sometimes even once I warm it, it takes me I have to take a couple of deep breaths before I can eat it because of the smell. But typically a hamburger and a steak, those warm up just fine for me. And I can eat them fresh or reheated. I can do the chicken wings reheated now. But, just like anybody else, we kind of eat the same things over and over again, just like people on the standard American diet do. That's the other thing I find so funny is that people that are on the standard American diet or any other diet for that matter, they say, oh, it's so restrictive. You have to eat the same things all the time. You have such a limited list. Everybody eats like the same 20 foods, every week, all year long. And so what's the difference if mine are meat, eggs, and cheese and yours are, potato chips and waffle fries or whatever, but I do not have a problem with the things that I'm eating on a regular basis. I can eat ribs, but there are things, like I said, beef roast, and my daughter does food prep once a week, and I can actually smell it when we pull into the garage in the basement with the windows still closed on the car. I can smell it when she's done her food prep because she uses a lot of spices that I can't use. So I smell that for a couple of days in the house. But for the most part, what I'm eating is really good. It tastes good. And I just kind of avoid the things that still smell a little bit off. It's interesting because like deli meats still smell off and things like pepperoni and salami still smell off. I almost feel like my body is protecting me. You know what I mean? Because hot dogs still don't smell or taste right. So it's weird. It's almost like, on one hand, it's like having this superpower smelling. I can smell things that nobody else can smell. And they'll say, no, I don't smell that. I'm like, no, it smells like, and I'll say it and they'll say, oh, wait, maybe I do smell that now. But for me, it's really strong. So it's like this superpower in some cases, but in other cases, it just kind of stinks because the things, smell and taste so bad. So
one criticism people would have of a sort of an all meat diet is it's prohibitively expensive. How are you finding that to be the case? How does that compare to, say, your diet before?
Well, I think it's either comparable or we're spending a little bit less because we're not buying all of the other ingredients to make, these elaborate, meals every day. And we end up, let's be honest, most of the stuff we put in the refrigerator for leftovers goes in the trash, especially the vegetables because they get soggy and mushy. So I think that we probably spend a little bit less. I buy ground beef, especially when it's on sale. I'm pretty good about getting to the store kind of early in the morning when all of the meats have been marked down from the day before, the ones that are going bad, but they still have several days left on them, and I'll bring them home and put them in the freezer. So I bought probably 50 chicken wings the other day like that were, they had the sale price on them. They were going bad. So I try to be really good about buying the things that are on sale. I don't really shop sales. I'm not good at that, but I do try to buy most of the ribeyes and strip steaks that have already been marked down. And I try to buy the ground beef at Aldi, for instance. Aldi has really good prices on their ground beef and it's fattier than, the more expensive ground beefs are the leaner ones, which is fine because I want the fattier ones anyway. So I try to get the ground beef at Aldi usually because that's where I can find the best price. And we do eat cheese and eggs here too. We are not like specifically beef or meat in our house. We do eat some dairy and we do eat eggs.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so it's safe to say that you are not focusing specifically only on, say, a grass finished product. You're eating, standard supermarket meat. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Yeah. And I heard, I think it was Dr. Chafee say one time, you probably heard him say this, like the difference between the grass finished and the regular beef is like the difference between the gold and the silver, and the Olympics are still on the podium. So it doesn't really matter. Was it Dr. Chafee that said that? I just think that's an awesome analogy. Like I'm still doing better than 95% of the people. So I'm good with that. We really can't do all grass fed. And I think that's okay. Mentally, it has still helped us. Physically, it has still helped us. And I honestly, and this is going to sound very corny, but I think I'm a better person because I'm a carnivore. I really do. I'm a better person inside, outside.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel completely different than I did a year and a half ago.
Yeah, that a funny analogy. I don't know if Anthony said that. I know when I was on Rogan's podcast, I made the analogy of, world champion versus runner-up or second contender or something like that about 5 years ago. But and that's an important point. You said you feel like you're overall just a better person because some people say you would be an awful, evil, cruel person. These people that come from a sort of a vegan perspective that think that you're a mass murderer, you're contributing to a holocaust of animals and all that stuff. Does that bother you at all? Are you concerned about that? You worried about the fact that an animal's dying when you eat a hamburger? How do you? I don't think you have to justify, but does it bother you at all?
So here's the thing: I am not a nose to tail carnivore. I still am really funny about the things that I eat. I don't like to eat organs. I don't like to eat different things. I won't eat alligator. I won't eat horse. I won't eat kangaroo. I won't do those things. That's just not who I am. And whether or not I'll get there, I don't know. And I don't even think that I have to. I think beef and chicken and pork are good enough. Mm-hmm. That's enough variety for me. I'm really happy where I am. But I know that there is no death-free diet. I know that, people adopt a vegan diet and they get commended. It's like, oh, look at this lifestyle choice they've made. Look at this. But it is not better for the economy. It is not better for, global warming. It is not better for agriculture. It is not better for anything if somebody is a vegetarian versus a carnivore. I know that, as, far as gases go and stuff like that, the cows, basically provide the least amount of contaminants in the air compared to all the factories and plants that make all of these vegan, and vegetarian special products. And so I know that there are criticisms, but I think if people really took the time to do the research, they would see that It is not worse to be a carnivore. And, you can spot an actual vegan from a mile away. And I'm not putting anybody down by saying that. If you're offended, I'm sorry. But the color of their skin, like they're not just pale, they're gaunt looking. If they are like a really strict vegan and have been for a long time, you can tell. And I know that there are vegan bodybuilders and people that are vegan that are in shape and people that are vegan that are very healthy, but they don't do it without supplements. And one of the main things for me that I feel like is makes it final for the carnivore diet is that we don't need any supplements at all to have collagen in our cheeks and skin. Our skin is nice and colorful and to be vibrant and have energy. We don't need any supplements at all. We only need meat, salt, and water. And you will be healthier for it. Your blood work will be great. You will feel great. You will have energy. You will be able to run. You will be able to lift weights without having any of those supplements or any additives or having to do anything special to your food. And I think for me, that puts the nail in the coffin, so to speak, on, being a carnivore for me, because you can't be a vegan without supplementing. Or you're not going to be a healthy vegan without supplementing. And I think that makes a huge difference in how we look at the diets. Like, there is no other diet anywhere where you need no supplementation at all. And when I went to the doctor last spring, when I was eating 75% fruits and vegetables, aside from, when I was eating the things I shouldn't have been eating, I was always basically a pretty healthy, even on 75% vegetables, I was still binging on things. Like, there were still things that were healthy. It wasn't always cupcakes and cookies. There were other things that I binged on. I binged on kale even. So, but when I was eating like that and I had my blood work done last spring, it was not very good. I was deficient in many things. My thyroid was a little bit off. I was not what you would consider the picture of health. And so I had been a carnivore for like 9 months before I went in to have my blood work this spring. And I was a nervous wreck. I was like, when we did my blood work and then I had to go in 2 weeks later to go over it with the doctor, I was basically holding my breath for 2 weeks. And I've seen people say, you, Kelly, so many people say, your blood work is going to be fine. Don't worry about it. But I was so nervous about it. And I went in and he looked at it. He said, well, your blood work is perfect. I don't know what to tell you. And I was like, thank you. It was just such a relief to know my blood work was perfect. And I don't think you get that if you're a vegan. You know what I mean? Like, not without supplementation. And so I think that's something that people don't realize either, is that if you're a vegan or a vegetarian, in order to get your protein where it needs to be, you do have to do something special. You have to figure out how to get those vitamins and nutrients and protein in. And as carnivores, we don't have to do that because beef already has all of it. And I think so many people don't understand that beef is a total and complete food and gives us everything we need.
Yeah, I believe that as well. I think that you can do fine with just an all beef diet, as I've seen it demonstrated literally thousands and thousands of times in a row. When you went to visit your healthcare provider to get labs, did you mention, hey, I'm on an all meat diet? Did that ever come up?
So I didn't tell him right away. I did tell him that I was on a limited, what I felt like he would consider a limited diet because of my taste and smell. Mm-hmm. And then after he told me my blood work was perfect, I told him that I basically eat 0 carbohydrates, and whether or not he interpreted that as all meat, I'm not sure. He seemed surprised. He advocates for the Mediterranean diets. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he would advocate for like the high fat, low carb Mediterranean diet. I think he is just all in on a Mediterranean diet, and he looks very healthy and his wife looks very healthy. But I feel like what I'm doing is right. So I didn't actually come out and tell him. But I did tell him that I was basically on a 0 carb diet.
Yeah. And most likely if you told them I was eating just all beef all the time, they probably would push back on that a little bit,
Yeah.
That's interesting. The Mediterranean diet does include quite a bit of meat.
Yes.
For those people who've ever been there, it's kind of funny. They believe it's this mythical thing where they only eat a piece of fish and salad all day and some olive oil and some, but that's not actually what they actually eat there.
Yeah.
Well, Serena, this has been very, first of all, I'm very happy for you and thank you for sharing this. I'm sure a lot of people will get a lot of information from this and inspire some people. So thank you for doing that. Are you doing like social media and stuff like that? Or could someone follow you there or find you there if they wanted to?
Yeah, I'm Serena.carnivore on Instagram, Serena Music on Facebook. And then I have a YouTube channel with my friend Jesslyn Randall. and it's called the Carnivore Revolution. And we also have an Instagram page and a YouTube channel, and we make recipes. We do use a lot of dairy in the recipes that we use because you can't really make carnivore macaroni and cheese without a lot of cheese. We make carnivore ice cream, which we actually did with Dr. Kiltz one day. We made like gnocchi one day and carnivore enchiladas. And so we do all these like fun recipes. And a lot of times we have guests come on and cook with us, and we do Instagram lives with other people. And that's been a lot of fun. So you can follow us there on the Carnivore Revolution.
Very good. Well, thank you for doing that. Anyway, rest of you folks, we'll see everybody tomorrow. Serena, have a great rest of your day. Thank you. And look forward to your continued progress.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.